Maybe we will start because it's even more than 11. So let me introduce our lecture today. Liubov Zharova, Doctor of Science in Economics, Senior Researcher, Head and Professor of the International Economic Relations, Business and Management Department. She will walk today with you. She will speak about very interesting information about COVID and how to combine this interesting COVID time with entrepreneurship. So, Liubov, you are welcome.
Okay, thank you. So today we have like 45 minutes for the lecture and then question. So if you have any questions, anyway, you can just stop me and ask them. And actually, I hope that you will at least answer my questions during the lecture. Actually, then I was asked to choose the topic about this lecture, about how we are going to talk about the entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship, about business. And I think that this COVID topic, it cannot be avoided. So anyway, we are coming back to this question. We are still talking about lockdown, about how it influences our economy. And that's why I think that it's like points that we need to discuss with you and maybe to think about your knowledge that you received during this semester and that you're going to receive afterwards from these links, from this perspective of the COVID, because anyway, from today we cannot avoid it because we are living in this new situation almost a year, and it's actually influenced all spheres of our life. That's why today I actually try to focus how it influences their internship, not internship, I work too much, entrepreneurship, and how these trends will affect our economy. And I think partly your work and your understanding who you are going to be at the end of the university when you graduate from the university, because it's changed, it influenced every life and every economy. And actually, even those who were very optimistic in the beginning about the pandemic and the possibilities and abilities of the country, of the economy, of this social parts of policy to overcoming this pandemic. Actually, everybody fails and all economies are affected. And to start with, I think that we all know that now it's like not look very optimistic. We're still talking about like second wave and maybe the beginning of the third wave. And unfortunately, nobody can predict when it's going to stop or to slow down, or at least to move to the next stage when we were thinking about COVID like just a seasonal flu. Yeah. So that's why I think that we need to start to have the same flow for conversation. Please go to the Menti.com and answer this small question. I find my okay. The first association with the COVID. So for you to wake up, for me to understand what you are thinking, what you associate with COVID, what is your first thing you think when you're starting to talk about the COVID, reading the news? So just open the eyes and read this topic of today's lecture. So what do you have in mind?
Mask.
Yes?
Lockdown.
Okay, so you
Pandemic.
have perfect. Go to
Sanitizer.
Menti.com. Perfect. Go to Menti.com, put this code and write your thoughts. So the first, and then we have this visualization, because now we're all working the internet, so we need to use these modern features to make our life interesting. Pandemic, lockdown, Perfect. Somebody else? We have like only 4. There's at least 20 of you, so. Why I like this idea with association, because it's give you the picture of general direction of the thoughts of ideas. 9, it's small, there are almost like 20 or 30 of you, so just I waiting. Wake up, guys. Opportunities. So 10. It's I think like 5 more. Guys, wake up. It's not only my lecture, it's our like mutual work. It's if I just want to speak with myself, I can just even not open my notebook, just talk with my cat, for example. It's at on this time of online lecturing, it's more or less convenient with almost all my topics. So at least half of us. So the first, it's lockdown, lack of live communication, perfect boredom, opportunities, distancing, online work. What is interesting for me, because when I ask people in the beginning of this process about what is their first association, it was more about safety, about the threats that bring on us this new pandemic, and about like distancing. But now we have these opportunities. I think it's really interesting. And because it's like new stage of life, also economic life, we start to think about what we can do in this situation. And of course, it's about online work, about distancing. So now we're all working together. So but the clue word it's lockdown. So be aware about this, because actually this is what affected all economies, and again nobody can escape this. And we have this new type of recession. If we're talking about this first association with COVID, with lockdown in global economic perspectives and discussion on all these international levels, like World Monetary Fund and OSD, we're all talking about the economic recession. And what is interesting, it's not the first recession in the economic history of the world. It's only the next one. But what is unique? Of course, every recession is unique, but all recession beforehand were caused by some reasons that were formed inside the economy, like overestimation of online projects in 1990s. This is dot-com recession, like finance crisis because of like underestimating the risk of mortgage investments. And all these risks, all these bases for recession were formed inside the economies, and they're caused by the economic development. And this is the first. Perfect. I'm so glad to see you here, that you're actually in. So the first recession that caused by the disease. This is something that is formed outside the economic development. This is something that is formed by some external factors. That's why this recession is so deep, because actually any economic borders in any country, they just cannot predict what to do. They don't have some set of tools how to mitigate the consequences of this recession. And this is why actually we're talking so much about this, and all these international funds and bodies and communities that trying to find some solutions. And of course, it's affected all of us, and it's affected every economy, and every country actually try to find its own way. And when we're trying to understand how this influence our lives and what our lives are going to be after year 2020, actually there are a lot of predictions, and you can easily find different tendencies, different overviews, because now it's like very commonly used and published, because we have this demand on such information. And I just try to summarize these new tendencies, and now I'm just going to go through them and describe my vision, how they influence this world on macro and micro level, because actually you are going to work and you can observe these business activities on different levels, on macro levels with sole entrepreneurs, and on macro levels with international corporation, and they are all affected by this new COVID situation, but in different ways. And what will affect our lives afterwards? The first is vaccine, and it's not only about vaccination itself, like some creating some barriers on the spreading this disease, but it's now we're talking about from the not about our health perspective, but from the economic perspective, from the political perspectives. And in this case, this fight who create this vaccines first and will actually spread it all over the world. This is about the huge amount of money, and it is about the power, the political power and the economic power, because at the first stage, all countries, all economies will depend from those who create this vaccine, this effective vaccine. So, and that is why now we all have here the speculation about who is invented, who started to vaccine their citizens. Is it work, or maybe it doesn't work? So this is not only about our health. For politicians, and it's about the money and the power. That's why when we're talking and trying to predict how the economy will recover and for which percentage the GDP will grow, actually it depends from this position a lot. That's why like China, Russian Federation, and United States and some European countries, they're just trying to invent, and they invest their money because here it's very important to be first. And of course it's affected us also, but when we're talking about this macro level, it's about this huge amount of money. And actually, if we like live in a country which participated in these races about inventing the vaccine, those who reach this point of destination first, they receive not only this money for these enterprises who will invent and produce this vaccine and spreading this vaccine, but actually this is all money that will influence the growth of all economy. Unfortunately, if we're talking about like Ukraine, we more like consumers, we're not participated in this race, and we are not receiving this share of this huge amount of money. But anyway, we are not like alone, and we are not unique, because only huge economy and really the economy with potential to develop something can participate in this race. And the first, the winner, and the next, those who can copy paste everything very quickly. So that it was, they divided like this, second and third place in this economic fight. The next one, when we can think about, this is the mixed economic recovery. So again, because the nature of this crisis, of this recession is unique, so our tendencies, how we are going to recover, it's not like traditional set of tools like fiscal policy, monetary policy, and that's all. It included much more complex tools, and actually a lot of economists said that this is the first step when we started to think or come to the next stage of our technical and technological revolution, or this theory of waves, when we will use new technologies that's just developed and the development jeopardizing by this period of pandemic. And this creates another situation because now we have more flexible working places. A lot of people and a lot of businesses understand that you can work from home, you can use different digital tools and features for organize effective working process, and this is important. And that's also means that you can replace people whatever you can, because in this case you can survive in any lockdown. And if you replace these people and you replace some simple works, and not only very simple, with artificial intellect, that means, yes, I will try to speak closer and to speak louder. I don't know. I hope now it will work. Or maybe just wait a second, I try to change my and speak with the mic. It also can be a solution. Wait a minute. This, oops. Is it better?
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. I hope it works. It's like modern life.
And sorry, can you show the first slide? I need to screen it for university.
This one?
First one.
Very fast.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
That's all.
Perfect. So I hope now that you hear me. I don't actually know why it's not working in this way. Anyway, so when we're talking about this economic recovery, we're talking about that it was some unique way for surviving for everybody, because now those who organize their businesses, they think that they can replace people and it will really work for everybody. And then when you replace people, you should think about that these people now unemployed and they will seeking for another type of the job. So, and this create like another problems in the economy, and then you should think about this, and it's create like new issues that is not actually in traditional tools of, for example, fiscal policy or monetary policy. You never think about that you fight and not like simple vision of unemployment, but this new unemployment that created by new technological factors. And this is will also create great problems in all economies. Another, it's overcoming disorder, because now we have like the mess in the traditional relations and traditional connection between people, between firms. We have problems with transporting, with contacting, with even in the first stage, with signing documents, and now we should rebuild this order, and it's of course affected our lives, our economic lives, and not here talking about our personal lives, like how we're going to celebrate the new year at Christmas. It's more about us like economic beings, yeah, and about how we're going to survive economically. Of course, now we cannot just divide, and this is the idea of a lot of modern theories, that we cannot divide the social, economic, and environmental part, and we should always work in together. But actually, here I'd like to focus on these economic consequences. And of course, the life after 2020, it's like about about the social distancing, this less freedom. And here it's with the question mark, because actually when we are talking about the freedom, we are talking about less communications, yeah, less possibilities to visit some places. But from another perspectives, now I have freedom to spend more time at home, and it also can be positive. So it's again, it's about rethinking, and this is one of those challenges who firstly was affected everybody, and there was a lot of crying and new humor videos about how to survive and how to organize all these processes at home when you have everybody stand at home and everybody needs their free space for speaking, for surviving, for cooking, just for studying. And this again, we think about our homes, the room inside in different way. And this is again change our consumer preferences. And it's also create these new techno changes. Now, actually, I never was fond of Google Meeting and all these parts. And actually, I very often, till this pandemic, for example, personally do a lot of notes just by hand. I have these lectures when I write on the borders my new ideas, and now I just need to do it everything on computer. It's a simplest example, but anyway, we think about these changes. We think about how to use these new opportunities. And actually, during this year, the idea how you can advertise your product, how you can spread information about your activities, your courses, your qualification, your businesses through all these channels, technological also ones. It's completely changes, maybe not completely, but actually it's the new era of understanding how we can do a lot of things. For example, education. Yes, so we started with, now I have plenty of courses, and we not only have the courses and you can just receive some certificates or have the highest grade, but also we have a lot of small, short and long videos, and we have these long videos on YouTube. Now we have this IGTV format in the Instagram, and we have also the small videos in TikTok, and there is learn on TikTok. It's also very popular, and if you try to find information and try to study, now you can choose any format of education. You can choose any supporting materials on any length in any language. And actually, if we're talking about this technological support is things like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, now they became more or less similar, because YouTube start talking about this short videos format, and TikTok start to talking about that they are now going to allow format of longer videos. And it's not only about education. This possibility to use the social medias, because now we all have more time, it's create like new tendencies in the advertising, and it's like new approach, especially in TikTok, because it's became more and more popular. And I hope that you know about this video with a man who just skate into the walk and drinking, I don't remember what kind of juice, not apple, and maybe cherry juice. And this video becomes really viral one, and everybody tried to buy this juice and write down their own videos. And actually in United States, this type of juice of this particular form was just sold out in 1 week in the whole country. And this company then like investigated that this man is actually more or less homeless, and they like built him they bought him, I think, a car, and those supporters from the TikTok, they just gather the money for some house for him. So it's like the new video and the new understanding that is created now, how we can advertise our businesses. And energetic drinks like Red Bull and another one I forget, they also think that now you don't need to plan all your advertising. You can just create this strategies that you send everybody who asked like 2 bottles of this drink, and then they created their TikToks videos with your bottles. And you actually don't care about what they will do. You just believe that if everybody will see these bottles, it creates the demand. And this is actually what changed our lives, especially like it's became more visual in this last year, because it's create like you not only change our consumer preferences, it's change what we expected from the social media. And that means that those who are trying to sell us everybody, and we like entrepreneurs should to think how to communicate with our consumers, not only by these similar advertising, but try to talk, to ask, create some spontaneous videos, use all this social media, including again TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And of course television is stay like in priority in a lot of countries, because elder people, they're still like more focused on television. But if we are working with some younger audience, we need to think about these new approaches, and it's really something that affected our lives a lot and give a lot of opportunities for solo entrepreneurs, for small companies to find their niche on this market and to survive. And here we're also talking about new roles of companies, because now we started to think that we're expecting from company not only like that they are pay our salary in time, and this is the most important thing. Now the social support, when they know that like your enterprise or your boss are ready to cover, for example, your expenses for COVID test, it's became important. And you will appreciate and choose the company if you're trying to find a job when, for example, you can receive like masks and sanitizer. So it's also about that we are not only seeking for money, we're also seeking for support and for some that believe that you are not just throughout from this company in any crisis time. At least your boss or you like will try to solve this problem or some mitigate this risk. And you like entrepreneur, you also think that how you can interact with your workers, how you can think about them like social beings, like not only like the parts of the overall economic mechanisms that make you money. And what is interesting here, it's about climate change, my point, but actually it's not only about the climate change, it's also about that everybody expected, and it was like a traditional series that if we are stopping like using transport, it's change everything for the better and we save the environment. But this is lockdown show very perfectly that now we are still consume too much, we produce too many waste, and actually this medical waste, it's creating even huger problems that it used to be before this pandemic. And this is something that we now cannot just ignore. And this is why this arguments and these issues of climate change became more and more essential. And actually that is why more and more entrepreneurs, not only the bigger firms, but only the smaller one, positioning themselves like eco-friendly or those who care about the environment. And we started to talk that if you want to buy our products, we use like paper, not the plastic for packing it, and so on. So this is still on stage, and we are still to thinking about this. And this is of course still very important. And actually the next two like new risks that's created, and they're still, and deja vu, this is a feeling that all your days are the same. So you're like waking up and you go to your black screen, and in my case, and you are talking with black squares, and then you're asking these black squares to answer you, and all these days, because you're not like go out and you are not just at least seeing different faces in the bus on your way to your home, it's create like stress. It's sometimes create a problem with, again, this procrastination, because just you're lost in time, and it's create a lot of psychological consequences. And that's why we need like more people who can help us with this. So it's changed the market. It's changed with the market, because now we need those who can teach us how to survive on social distances. So we need this psychologist. We need those who can like train us and teach us to find ourselves, and I don't know, like build a plans and to-do lists. So that's why it's now, I don't know, it's like a way for those who are an expert in self-development, because actually it's like people trying to find themselves. So it's create new markets. And this is all together changing our world and changing how we think about this. And what is interesting here is that actually it's affected all businesses, because nobody can escape and not react. And when we're trying to think about recovery, and this is something that is very important and very interesting thing, because when you are thinking about the recovery, you can name who is most effective recover these consequences of COVID?
Young people.
Yes, but if we are talking I think yes, but if we're talking about the economies, the countries.
Well, of course, if you have better medical care, then people will recover faster.
Yes, but if we're like United States, China, I don't know, Ukraine, Germany, Russian Federation, Mexico, who you think is most successful in recovering?
I think it's the countries, and I can like list specific ones, but that have more trust from the people for the government, because there's a lot of people who, when the government tries to enforce some different rules to protect the whole population, they're very distrustful, and so they don't actually want to go along with this. So it's in the long run creating a much longer time for those countries to heal. And also countries that are more free market because they're able to be more flexible to adapt to these changes. Whereas like countries that have more government control and more red tape, it's a lot more difficult for them to make such quick adjustments as they would need to in times of crisis like this.
This is like question with no correct answer, because actually if we think about this from the position, like again China, that's always declares that they're like starting first and then they overcome, and very often then people thinking about these strategies that said that these strict rules and like you have this restrictions, is command norms, and you cannot ignore. It works better. And this is again why you should think about the price of this overcoming the consequences, because the stricter rule you have, actually it can be more efficient from the position of stopping the spreading of the virus. But if we're talking about the possibilities like for economic development and recovery, here maybe you need, I agree, actually need free market and less regulation. And this is where like every country is seeking for their own way. And it's somewhere like when we need to, I think, wait at least 5 years to analyze, like totally analyze these consequences of this year 2020. And here again, we will still have these two poles of these approaches. This is United States and China, like less and most controls countries, and we are all, I think, situated somewhere in between. And here, when we're talking about the entrepreneurs, who do you think is the most affected, small, medium, or solo entrepreneurs by all these measures?
Small and medium ones, mostly.
I would say specifically medium ones, because their small ones are a lot more agile, and while they're definitely affected in a negative way, medium ones are usually big enough that they have more responsibilities and they're a little bit clunkier and harder to make big changes with, and harder to adapt to some of these drastic changes that they would have to make. Whereas the small ones, they're more flexible, but then the biggest of the big ones, at least in America, are getting huge unreasonable like kickbacks from the government for no reason, even though they're laying off tons of people and putting the normal average person out of work and not really giving them any money to support themselves.
Like, to my mind, the worst situation is for small and medium entrepreneurs, because like all the big companies and entities, they have some sort of anti-crisis management, and they have enough resources to operate and to deal with changes and all the recessions. So that's definitely about small entrepreneurs who don't have enough resources to fight such crisis.
I'd say that this is a complicated question because they mostly need to be reviewed on case-by-case basis. For example, the cinema theater group, forgot how it's named, in America is on the verge of bankruptcy, although it's one of the biggest businesses in the industry. And while some small businesses may survive, but if we talk about groups, then I'd say that as a group, small and medium businesses are more affected than big businesses.
Yes, I actually agree. I like your points. Like the first, yes, that's it's very strongly depend from the sphere where the firm is working, because yeah, all this entertainment sphere now, it's like in the deep crisis, not only in the United States but also like in all countries. And in Ukraine we have this city, cinema city, yeah, they also have this problems, and they even thinking about like close their cinemas in all these entertainment centers and shopping malls.
And yes, the medium terms are at most risk because actually they are less flexible than the smaller one and don't have this amount of resources to overcome or at least mitigate the consequences. What is important here, and with small businesses, actually, this is important for them to survive, and they are more flexible. They're trying to find these new ideas, creating new products. And if we're talking about, for example, like small businesses connected with cooking, I don't know, all these cafeterias, they're just now working like a black kitchens, and they're just not creating new restaurants or cafeterias, they just created kitchens when they cook their dishes all through the menu, and you can just order it to your flat or maybe office.
It is called dark kitchens, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, dark kitchens. It's I need to translate it twice from Ukrainian to English and back. What is one more point I'd like to stress? I forgot. Okay, and what you can do, like in entrepreneurs, you can think about finding diversifying your business, but for all types of businesses, it's very important to understand what is going on. Because, for example, in Ukraine, a lot of small businesses were very hardly affected, not by the lockdown itself, but this an understanding the time of the dates of lockdown, because then you know that you are not allowed to walk like from 2nd of some months to the 2nd of the next month. You can predict and you can think about your strategy how to survive. But if you know that the first it was like from 2nd to 24th, then from 3rd to I don't know to 13, that it's, and all this information change, it's actually affected the entrepreneurs and businesses, not only small, but also the big one, even more than lockdown itself, because you cannot predict, you cannot plan, you cannot mitigate this influence. And actually, that's why when we're talking about like expectation and strategy and what the entrepreneurs expect, for example, from the government, and then you're trying to create this survey, for example, a lot of Ukrainian and not only Ukrainian entrepreneurs said that for them it's very important to understand this like schedule of lockdown, when you can walk and then you cannot. And this predictability, it's very important for the businesses. That's why for those who need to plan their activity to this, for example, days in Ukraine, it's like very crucial issue to understand. Do we have this intelligent? Yeah, it's I don't know, it's not clever, maybe intelligent lockdown, or don't we have it? So can you work on Sundays and Saturdays, or you cannot? So the predictability now, it's the like clue for successful entrepreneurship activity on all levels. And actually, I think that here we can finish, because what is interesting about the, because nobody can predict where we will be in the final stage of this pandemic. And this is actually the set of questions that United Nations and European Union, they like creating for trying to estimate these consequences. And what is very interesting is that now when they're not only talking about the economic problems, but we are more and more connected it with our function inside like the families. We're trying to address them to these environmental issues. And actually, this is like very important shift in all these international surveys, because before actually the pandemic, they were more concentrated on, for example, only economic issues or only health issues or only environmental issues. And now all these organization trying to address it to the health, economic, environmental, social aspects in complex, and trying to estimate how it's all together will influence our economic lives. I hope that you will concentrate, because you are on the start of these activities. It doesn't matter will you like sole entrepreneurs or you will work in a corporation, on a small firm. For you, it's on the beginning, and they understand now it's time for opportunities, for seeking your chance, how you can find this new niche in advertising, in production, in communication. So it's very interesting, really interesting time for rethinking the traditional approaches to business activities. And I hope that you will find your unique niche where you will be very successful. And then I will lecture and make from your examples like best practices of surviving in pandemic. Because actually young people who are really open-minded, they can create something new because they just don't have these limits where everybody create because we have our own experience, and this is create to us our own limits. So take your chances and wash your hands. So if you have any questions, any comments, because actually this is something that we can like discuss endlessly. So I'm ready to listen, to answer, to discuss. No more questions. Okay, so anyway, just try to read the news, because now it's not only part of some election task or education, it's something that will help you to survive and find your own way. And have a nice day, even though it's a Monday.
Thanks for the lecture.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Nice
Thanks a lot.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.